If she was still alive today, what would she be most proud of about you? Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast, and I am super pumped to have my new friend, James Dixon, here. And James is like a celebrity or a pseudo-celebrity, or I don't even know what to call you, man, because you are killing it. In the last year, your YouTube channel, Absolute Motivation, which, by the way, has some of the best edited, best curated, best narrated videos I've ever seen. Like, if you need a pick-me-up in the morning, if you need I need to get fired up about crushing the day, crushing my workout, grinding through a tough day of work, go to Absolute Motivation. You'll see it. It's just everything about the channel is great. And you went from like kind of trudging along at a few thousand viewers, got up to like 70,000 subscribers. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, it took 12 years to become an overnight success. Now you got 1.4 million followers. You're signing TV deals. You're launching websites. You're a celebrity in the space now. And I heard from a mutual friend of ours, shout out to Matt Drink On. He said that you're just a stellar guy, man, and you were a fun conversation, and you got a great backstory, and you're a heck of a guy. So I wanted to have you on, knowing nothing about you other than the fact that you come highly recommended and highly respected, which I think is the most important thing. So tell us the story of James Dixon. I don't know anything about you, man. Married, kids, college, work.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I am probably the greatest title I carry is dad, you know. My kids are my everything. I have 3 of them, all nearing adulthood. One is already an adult and got her master's degree. So I'm really proud of that, more than I am of anything else. Amazing. I've been focused on the old game plan, if you will. My grandfather, my grandmother, my mother all worked in a factory. And I grew up with the idea that if you get you a good job, after you get your education, you work that job, and then one day you'll retire and you can do what you want. But that wasn't a game plan for me. You see, I was born with a disability. I lost my leg when I was 11, but it was also at 11 that I took my first steps in life. From the 30 days of age, they started splint on me. 3 months old, I had a surgery, and I had one every 6 months until my leg was amputated without me knowing it was going to be amputated at 11. I decided at that moment that I wanted to do what every other kid had done. I was nicknamed the crippled kid on the porch in my neighborhood. And so that was my name, the crippled kid on the porch. Just my grandmother, myself sitting on the porch. She was my nurturer, the one that nicknamed me Superman. Said my only issue is the leg was my kryptonite. If I can overcome that, I could do anything. And so that's my backstory. So if you're wondering, worked in a factory, tried to prove myself and realized this is not the calling for me. Tried to overcome my disability, was quiet about it and hid it until I was 45. And then...
Wait, how do you hide the fact that you're missing a leg?
Well, here's how. I was around able-bodied people forever. And I began to mimic your movements. And so I would watch what's called your gait. And when disabled people, when we lose a leg, they teach us to walk in parallel bars. We go from parallel bars to a walker, to a cane, to walking free. But we use our hands, sliding them forward in an unnatural way. When you walk, when your left foot goes forward, your right hand goes forward. Right foot goes forward, your left hand goes forward. More of your movement is from your core. And so by watching able-bodied people, I mimicked so I could fit in. But my fit in was because my mom, I got to give this backdrop or it won't make sense. When I was 11, they took me to the hospital. It was the norm. I know I'm going to have a surgery, but they don't tell me what time. I wake up in the morning and my leg is gone. No one told me, no one prepared me, and my mom wasn't there with me. A nurse is there trying to console me. And she tells me that these phantom pains, that's where the leg that is missing is now cramping. It feels like it's on fire, you name it. But I'm feeling all these different things, and I can't explain it. It's hurting, and I even though a leg is not there, it's cramping because the mind hasn't had a chance to process that it's missing.
Oh.
So my mom walks in, and the nurse is telling me, James, you're going to be able to play sports and run and do everything every kid that you've ever seen do, you can do. Now, how's that going to be possible if I've never done those things before? My mom walks in the room. Here's the nurse giving me an encouraging talk and says, do not give my son false hope. If anything, he's a cripple and he'll have to learn to use his mind. So I look back at the nurse waiting on her to respond. And she said, James, whatever you can dream of, you'll be able to do. And my mom said, look at me, I'm your mother. And she said this, you're a cripple. You will always be a cripple. You will never be anything more than that. Do you understand me? And when I looked at the nurse again, my mother slapped me. And she said, do you understand? And right then my hope died because I repeated after her, I'm a cripple. You see, if it wasn't for my grandmother getting on a Greyhound bus because she couldn't drive, coming from Indiana to Chicago, forcing her way in because only the parents were listed on the visitation. And she said, I'm coming to see my baby. And she walks in, she tells me that I could be more. If she doesn't come, she doesn't embody me, empower me, brother, I'm not who I am today. And so for 45 years, man, I just tried to fit in with everyone else. I tried to be like you. I wanted to be accepted. I played sports. I did whatever. I mimicked everybody else, and I denied and lied to people. Said I didn't have, I wore a brace. I did anything I could, and I was passable because of my movement. The moment I wore shorts unapologetically, I was 45. I was working at the job, and I told everyone I'm going to do it. And 4,300 people wore shorts with me. That empowerment, man, made me more vocal about it. And when I got vocal about my overcoming something, I became the voice to a whole different generation.
And what changed at 45? You know, was there just a moment? Were you sick of it? Did you find God? Did your grandmother pass? Like, what happened at 45 that you're like, all right, now it's time to come out of the shell?
Because the job I was working counted it as a pre-existing condition. I'd worn a wooden leg, a 25-pound little wooden leg as a kid. I'd gotten another leg after that, but it was garbage. It had been broken for about 11 years and nothing I could do about it because I didn't have insurance. So I used to duct tape it to keep it together, the socket together, and just endured. And dealt with pain. It was just something I was used to. A level 5 pain, 6 pains, good day, you just deal with. Well, what the rules changed and they gave me a new prosthetic. And when I got a $45,000 leg, it was 6 pounds instead of 25. I had movement. He had the energy returned to it. And I decided, man, I'm done hiding. I feel liberated. I feel like I'm free. I started deadlifting and doing things that I couldn't do before. And so I won some national lifting competitions against able-bodied guys. I'm 6'4", 275, now. And so to win against able-bodied people, I never competed in any sport that wasn't against able-bodied people. And I decided I'm done hiding. I wore shorts. I spoke about it. I ended up modeling stuff for Under Armour. I ended up becoming, people started following me, listening to me talk. And the channel started growing instead of just sitting there dormant. And I have one other guy that was working with me, the editor, and he's a musician. So the music is scored to my words.
It's excellent, by the way.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And so I've seen some video on YouTube, and we'll have to insert it, of you deadlifting a shit ton of weight. And the first thing you notice is not that you have a prosthetic leg, that you are a big dude. So I got to ask, with the growing up, what was the physical activity like? Because obviously you stayed in shape. You're a strong guy. You're big. You're not frail. Is that all genetics, or did you play sports when you were younger and just not let the 25-pound wooden leg hamper you, or in some crazy way was carrying around that 25-pound piece of wood on your leg? Was that what created your superpower? Like, I guess what I'm really asking is, how'd you get so strong?
That's a great question, brother. I think the best way to say it is that my grandmother bought me a Hulk Hogan weight set so that I would do the rehab. And the Hulkster would come on and be like, work out, put it in, brother. Eat your vitamins. I believed him. I'd go out and I'd come back and I'd be like, Grandma, feel this, 22-inch pythons, 40, I would be saying all that stuff as a kid. And she was like, you have to work out or you'll atrophy. You'll end up back in the wheelchair. You got to put in the work. And so I continued it. I never stopped lifting from the time I left the hospital, ever. I've never stopped. And so strength developed, just genetics is a part of it. I'm still the smallest male on my father's side, My mother's side, I'm just middle of the road, dude. And at 6'4", 270, that's kind of common in my family. But I have another gear in me. So when I would go to lifting competition, you saw me deadlift probably 760. And in order for me to do that, then it takes everything. So I'll say something to you I've never told anyone on any podcast. When I'm lifting, I visualize everything. I visualize, but when I'm lifting in those competitions, I've got my singlet on. There, I didn't in that video that you saw, but I have my singlet on in competition. All I have is chalk. I have no wraps. And I go back to the day my grandmother had a heart attack in the driveway. And I think about trying to pick her up off the ground and carry her to that ambulance, And I think about the fact that I felt so much guilt, and that didn't see it sooner than when she fell. And so I channel all the emotion I feel in that moment about lifting that, and I'm lifting her, and I'm lifting her to life. As dark as that may be, it's the only thing that allows me to tap into the adrenaline that's necessary to pull that. And so when I pull everything. After I'm done lifting that, it's an emotional moment for me. That's it. If there was a secret to it, it's taking everything that you are, and leaving it right there. Every time I do it, I leave everything.
Man, you're going to make me tear up here, James. I didn't know. First podcast where I'm going to cry. The pessimist in me understands what your mom was trying to do when you came out of that surgery. Like, hey, we gotta set expectations. I gotta protect me. In her own way, she was clearly protecting you the best way that mother knew how to in that moment.
Yeah, she never seen me do anything, so the likelihood of me playing ball, running, she never saw that coming.
Right. Right. But why was your grandmother so special? What was it about her that she said, no, F that? Like, this kid can do whatever he wants. I get where your mother's coming from. I'm a realist. I'm a pessimist. That's probably some shit I would say, and my kid would be talking about this in 40 years on a podcast. But what was it special about your grandmother that she had this unwavering faith in your ability to do more?
Man, she just was like, when everyone else said I couldn't do something, she just was the optimist. She was the eternal optimist. She was the one that says, she was like, baby, you're Superman. You're so strong. You can do all these things. And it was her lack of being able to read and write. Doesn't mean she didn't have common sense. It's just that when she grew up at a time where she wasn't allowed to go to school, she didn't even know exactly how old she was. You see, that was a different time down south. So when she came up north, she was 13. And not being able to read and write, she had to learn the hard way and learn some street stuff, and common sense and wisdom that way. And so she would do things like sharpen my skills by getting a tutor for me when I was real little, maybe 3 or 4, where we learned to read together. You see, and then she would have me read things. And so I would read rather the Bible, and then she'd explain it. I would read mail for, and I would act out what the doctor was saying or whatever. But all of those things go back to, it was sharpening my abilities so that I would speak now. She saw this like Disney saw Disney World before it was ever built. And she died when I was 25. And, but I still miss her because that was the nurturer. That was the one that believed in me until I could believe in myself, brother.
If she was still alive today, what would she be most proud of about you?
It would probably be the fact that that I'm chasing my destiny, my purpose, and that her words were always like, "Don't let my life be in vain. I've invested everything I am into you," and her words would probably be more of, "Thank you for not wasting my life." You know. When I sat on that porch, I didn't sit alone. And so she would invest a lot of wisdom in me. So when you hear me speak, when you hear my passion, then it comes not only in overcoming something, because I truly believe in order to become something, you have to overcome something. But the fact that I made 2 promises in my life. When I was 8, she told me, she said, "Promise me you'll never let them put me in a nursing home." That was the first promise. And when I was 20, she gave me a call and they were talking about it. And I came back from living in New York. Ironically, that's where I am when I'm talking to you. I just did an interview with Carrie Champion, and I'm here with you, brother. So, and I'm honored. I'm more emotional talking to you than I was with a woman. What kind of damn show is this anyway? You're like Dr. Phil or some stuff? What is this?
I've been working on it, man.
Yeah. So I would tell you, man, for me, the other promise that is that I would become something. And so to fulfill that, man, I really am excited about this stage of life because, man, I've outlived and outperformed my initial dreams, and I've had to stretch myself to dream even bigger. There was a time where if I said, man, I wanted to reach 125 million people, and you're like, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I have that more than that views already, and I'm just beginning. My goal now is to reach 1 billion folks, man. With encouragement, with purpose.
So that's the new stretch goal. That's the new mission. Yeah. Reach 1 billion people with your message.
Yeah, I believe I can do that within 3 years.
Amazing. So, hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Can you talk to people about what your message is, right? Because I've watched the Absolute Motivation shorts, and there's a lot of how can I describe? There's a lot of hustle porn on YouTube. Work hard, play hard, own the Bugatti, like make a ton of money and crush a bunch of women. And, there's a lot of this, I think, misdirected male energy in the motivation space. Oh, screw your family, work 170 hours a week and take care of them, leave a bunch of money when you die. But there's something different about your, I guess I can only call them motivational videos, your insights. What is your message? Like, can you express to us maybe some of your core values or some of the messages you're trying to get through? Because obviously they're finding an audience, so it's hitting somebody.
So here's where it resonates with people. It's something like more like this. You have to take accountability. The flaws, the mistakes, if you're not successful, it's not because of someone else. It's within. Man, if you can be accountable and be honest and realize that you have to be the man that has to enter the arena. There's stuff you've got to overcome. You owe your family. You owe it to your bloodline. You owe it to everyone else. You cannot be a leader unless you're first willing to follow. And then after you follow the right people and connected with the right people, then you can lead. And when you lead, you have to have a purpose and direction. It's not with dominance. It's not with authority. It's with merit. And so you'll hear me talking to messages. A lot of my messages are personalized for specific people. I'll be with soldiers a lot, and I'll go in the VA hospital and I'll talk with them. And then when I'm talking to them and they're like, man, I'm losing my leg. There is nothing I can do. There's no way I can make it. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then I pull my pant leg up, and most of them are always shocked that I'm an amputee as well because of my mobility, my athleticism, and all those things. And I was like, if I can do it, so can you. But in order for you to overcome it, you got to confront it. But whatever you face has to also face you. And so if you're asking what the message is, it's personal accountability. It's about connecting to other men and realizing that becoming a man is about manhood. You got to find your tribe. You got to find people that will force you to be better. Your best version of you is not getting your car, not getting assets, not being a boss, not your best version of you is when you find out how you can serve other people and improve your community. So it's all about accountability.
You said some of my favorite words in there: community, tribe, accountability. I'm a loan officer by trade, and it's a great job. I love helping people. The money's been good. But what really lights me up is I have a coaching program. We got about 120 loan officers where we've really built that tribe, that community holds each other accountable. And I think, I've read some version of this stat is because of social media, because of Facebook, because of YouTube, we feel more connected than ever because there's always something to take up our attention, but we've never been, as a society, more disconnected. People don't know their neighbors. They don't go to church as much. They don't spend time with their family. So when you talk about building your tribe, obviously family was wildly important for you. When you were coming up as a young man who, on paper has some disabilities, where did you find your tribe? Who was in your tribe? Who was in your front row, your circle? Like, how did you find good men or women to surround yourself with? Because it takes a village, right?
Right. But let me tell you this. I grew up, man, in a city. So out of maybe 75 black males that I knew, only one of us had a father. And
wait, one out of 75 of your boys growing up had a father?
Yeah, we only one guy had a dad. And we remembered I would go over and we would hang out and we were like, man, what does a dad even do? Right? We'd ask those questions. And I was like, can a dad fight? Man, you ever fought your dad? I mean, a lot of us didn't have the acceptance from our fathers. We saw him every blue moon, or he just wasn't involved. Mom dated someone periodically or whatever, or was single mom and it was just you and mom, right? And so that wasn't fulfilling for me. I wanted to know. I'm watching television and I see a pastor on TV. And I reach out to him. I was like, hey, man, I like to come to your church. And they were like, well, I don't know if you know, but it's all white church. I'm like, man, I don't care about that stuff, man. I like what you're saying. I'm coming. And so And I was like, do you mind if I bring some friends? So we go to this I end up going, I'm a teenager, man. I go to this all white church. I meet the pastor and I'm asking him questions. And for the first time, I have a male that's like answering questions. I see he loves his wife. And I got to tell you, so what made me want to be a part around men who were successful, had goals, destination, all that stuff, right? Was that the first Sunday I ever went, he and his wife got an argument in the car when they picked me up. And I was like, oh, wow. So he gets in the pulpit. No one knows this, right? And she's upset that he's coming to the bad side of town picking up this kid. He gets up and he says, listen, today I spoke to my wife wrong. I'm not qualified to stand up here and talk to you people about morality and character. I'm going to sit. First, let me apologize to my wife publicly for what I did in private. And then I'm going to sit down. And he said, if there's any other man in here who's living right, why don't you step up and you talk today? And all of a sudden, this is a church of about 500 people. Every man was walking around apologizing to their children, to their wives. And it was such a move. And it was like, that was the most powerful display of manhood. You see, so when I began to be around men, and I realized you're not a punk for saying I'm sorry, and that you could be successful, that you could have finances, that you could have stuff without the stuff becoming you, that you don't have to floss and all those things. So finding the tribe, growing up, finding men that I could connect with and have them mentor me, if you will, whether they wanted to or not. I was staying engaged, staying involved, asking questions, and I always respected guys, uncles that I had that were in the military. They just weren't around. So I always order, structure, discipline. And so when I got to this stage, and I had guys like Greg Reed I met, he sends me a book, 3 Feet from Gold, then invites me out, and I started meeting other people who are successful. Then I've taken them back to the inner cities. I just did this in Chattanooga. I took 6 millionaires, brought them to the inner city, a church of 7,000 members. Kevin Adams is the pastor there in Chattanooga, and had them talk about how they became successful. The people there ate that up, wanted it. I mean, we're thirsty for it. So I'm building a tribe while I'm going back to the same villages, traveling the country, going back to the same community centers, and showing them how I made it out and how to get them out. And where I'm not strong, like you're a loan officer, there's more that you know about finances than I'll ever know. You have a superpower, what you take for granted every day and what you coach to your guys. Man, it would change our entire community. And I'm talking about a whole race of people if we could understand finances. We're the lowest economic earners in the country, but yet we spend more than anyone. We have more BMWs than any other race. We carry Louis Vuitton and Birkin bags and Tiffany jewelry. But brother, we don't have financial wisdom, knowledge. You see, finding people like you to be a part of the tribe, the same reason those people 120 come to you is because you're a difference maker. The reason why people were tuning into this podcast is because you're giving them something different. Your content pours out of your character.
Yeah, much more emotional podcast than I was expecting today, James. And by the way, I can ask you these questions because I got to give a shout out to Midge. That was my grandmother. She passed when I was 15, 16, and much like you, most important woman in my life. Like, just was the most important family. Just all the things that you said just resonated with me about her, and she was a wonderful woman. So I can really relate and tear up about the grandmother support. I don't know anything about living in the black community. If you could tell, I'm not black. People watching this podcast will see I'm not black. You are. How do we solve, like, when you tell me that there was a group of 75 men and only one of them had an active, engaged father, and the community needs financial education, how do we solve that? Because we got about 100-year track record of the government not being able to figure the fuck out.
I got the solution.
Okay, go.
It's not the give back like where you go and I hand out turkeys. The give back is knowledge. The give back is me showing them that the drug dealer that's the most popular person, the wealthiest person in the community. You see, the single father to the father to the single mother homes in the black community is Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, Snoop, and all these guys. But they're portraying something that they aren't. They're at home, they're fathers, husbands, they're all those things, but they project this gangster, I'm gonna do this, and street. They don't even live in the communities they're talking about.
Right.
So here's how we change that. You take people, you take them successfully, you bring them there. And then when you put them in that environment, you show them what's possible. And then you give them classes and accountability. I mean, it has to cost them. You can't give it away free because free doesn't have value. And if you give it away, let's say if you said, well, we're going to go ahead and give a stimulus check. Oh, yeah, I forgot we did that. So if you gave everybody $5,000, $12,000, everybody black gets 12, and now you're going to give us reparations. The money you would give out will go right back to the same people that had it in the beginning within a year. You're like, how would that happen? It's because literacy, the ability to read, that a young guy can start a business buying real estate before he's even 16 because an EIN doesn't have an age on it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you can take and create a millionaire through discipline and purchasing, or that the EBITDA can be different, and you can have more power with that than you can individually. The difference between teaching someone an C Corp and an S Corp, the difference in taking someone and saying, listen, stop trying to write a book about your experiences because it's con, right? Then publishers are making a tremendous amount of money out of you. And if you self-publish for $5,000, you're sitting out there, you make 20 copies, it never goes anywhere. That's not how you make it. You're teaching them that so many different things that happen, that there's a con game out here where we keep talking about such and such is a best-selling author, not knowing that they sold 28 copies under the lactating truck drivers category.
Yes.
Right? And I was like, man, stop giving people, or stop the bull crap of, I won't say speakers' names, but when they're like, it's your boy, yeah, that's right, you get out of this personal, selfish stuff and realize, man, I owe a damn community. Man, I have something to contribute. Damn. It's about making it. It's about accountability. It's about connecting, and stop believing the lie that racism is holding you back. It's not. In fact, man, the wealthier guys I've met, race never even come up. I found that those guys are more friendly and open and supportive. Man, I'm like, hey, they'll be like, hey, man, James, come stay a weekend with me and my family. I'm like, hold up. You just gonna let me run roughshod through your mansion, all that? Like, man, come anytime. Those guys have been more open, transparent, and inviting than you would ever imagine. They would love to welcome you to success. They would love to welcome you and mentor you to win. And they don't need you to take a picture for 65 cents a day. You too can. No, none of that stuff. This stuff guys really want you to. So if you want to fix it, less government, more relationships, more accountability. With the educational system of just go to school, sit still while we instill does not work.
Right.
You can do more teaching a boy a trade and him having that superpower that will always get him paid than you can have him sit there and regurgitate what some teacher said.
Man, that's so potent. I was listening to a podcast with, is it Jim Rowe, the guy that did Dirty Jobs and real kind of blue collar guy. And he said that for every 3 people that are leaving the trade unions, only one person is getting in. Because, you know, you go to high school and it's like, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to college. He's like, yeah, good luck. Try New York City getting an emergency plumber or somebody to build a garage or a shed or lay concrete. He's like, you're on a 6-month waiting list and you're going to pay an ungodly amount of money. Like a decent tradesman now is a guaranteed path to $100,000 because there's just scarcity. And we're still not teaching that in schools. We're telling a bunch of boys that can't sit still for 5 minutes that you got to go get a 4-year degree in, you know, Chicano lesbian dwarfism. And instead of saying, hey, why don't we teach you how to unclog a toilet or turn a wrench or be an auto body repair guy, and you'll make $100,000 starting at 18 because you know a trade.
But won't be respected or by women that way. You see, as long as you go get dirty, it's not the 100,000 that's the problem. It's the perception. So if you've got an Instagram lifestyle and everything is that girl at 18 is able to go sit on some yacht and they're traveling all over and doing all this stuff, and they think that you're broke and you're dirty because you're going to work and you're working in the sewer system. You could be making 3 times as much as she is as a dental assistant at $12,500 a year.
Right.
But if you were white, wearing a white collar and all that stuff, then they'd be all over you. Because the short game to males is presented that you're nothing, that women have all the options. I love it when I see guys grow and develop into their own, where they focus on themselves instead of chasing girls. And all of a sudden, the same girls that you weren't good enough for, they started getting about that 30-year age, and all of a sudden, Bobby the nerd is, you know, he's so loving, caring.
He bought a house. He paid off his truck. You know, all of a sudden that stuff matters.
Yeah, all of a sudden now he's got himself together now. He was such a class clown, but now he's like as if she was waiting on you to mature. No, brother. You're the prize.
Yeah.
Keep building these young males up this way. Hey, in New York, I'm in New York now, and trash is everywhere because no one wants to be a trash man. But these trash guys, because of the scarcity of people willing to do it, are now getting more money.
Yeah.
But you can overlook someone who's in sanitation who is actually maybe a guy who's about to get his own truck, start his own company, contract with the government, use his minority status, put his mom as a co-owner so he can get that if he's a white guy, right? Whatever it takes, or whatever he identifies as, maybe that can work. But we need more young men to learn skills. Those skills pay more than just a bill, man. They can create guaranteed support, security for you and your bloodline.
Yep. You know the richest guy, the second richest guy I've ever met. You know what that dude does for a living? Dirty, ugly, unair-conditioned insulation. He started doing insulation, and then he started doing commercial insulation. And in, LA and Nevada, doing commercial insulation, because you're doing it before the air conditioning's in, you got to start at 2:00 in the morning so your guys don't pass out from heat exhaustion. So this dude would work a job doing insulation from 3 in the morning till about noon. And then he would go he ended up getting a master's degree in business from USC. And then he ended up buying out one of the biggest commercial insulation companies in the country with somebody else's money, because he met some rich guy at USC. And then he sold the company like 3 years later and retired at 35 and just said, fuck you, I'm going to surf and ride on a boat the rest of my life. And if you would have met this guy in his 20s, you've been like, this guy's driving a 1977 Ford Bronco. He looks like he's homeless half the time. And like you said, the girls weren't into it. Thank God Instagram wasn't around when I was 20. I would have been a mess. But yeah, he's one of the wealthiest, most successful guys I've ever known. And it was just from working his ass off in insulation. Ugly, dirty, itchy job.
None of that was white privilege. None of that was wealth. None of that was generational wealth. That was a duplicatable blueprint that every man can go after. So you ask me how to fix it? Take a guy like that. Let them see that he outperforms your famous rappers and imagery and all that stuff, and be like, what he did, you can do. Mm-hmm. Going to the NBA and dunking like LeBron for 20 years, that's too rare.
Yeah.
We're too focused on like trying to make it out. He's gonna get a scholarship to college. Yeah, and he'll come out liberal with a messed up mindset and skills that he can use, you know? And I'd rather him, learn through men like that, right?
Yeah.
Through mentoring relationships. I'd rather get a consultation from a guy who did it than get the opinions of women who want to date that guy.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about the NBA. Even if you make it to the pinnacle of the NBA, I think probably this is going to be very controversial. One of the greatest athletes ever to play in the NBA was Allen Iverson because he was undersized. He's a tiny man, and I don't even think he was 6 foot. I mean, they might have put that on the roster, but I met him in person one time. I'm like, you ain't no 6 foot dude. And that guy is dead broke. He's teaching junior high basketball camps to pay his rent because he pissed through every fucking dollar he ever made because no man stepped up and was his mentor when he was in the NBA.
Yeah, and this thing about who's his deal with? Is that Reebok or Adidas? Who has?
I can't remember.
Well, they did a deal with him, and that they would wait to pay him until he was after the age 50 because they knew he would be broke.
Oh my God! So he's hanging on a couple more years till he's 50 to get his payout.
And that they're going to pay him monthly because they know he doesn't have the discipline. You see, he spent his whole time. Iverson became an icon and people imitated it. Until him, there was no players with tattoos, if you remember.
Yep.
The NBA even airbrushed his first poster. And then because they didn't want that image out there, now all the kids have done it. He changed the culture, not Michael. You see, Michael became status. Allen became the culture.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with it, Michael became wealthy. The culture became broke. If you follow a broke model, you'll be a broke representation yourself, a replica of something that failed. Iverson is a great study of a guy who made a lot of money and never learned anything, how to manage it. When he did his child support case, rolls up in his Rolls Royce. His children's mother had to take him to McDonald's to buy him something to eat because he was that broke. Rolls Royce. What he didn't realize is, there was power in a name, but if you don't fix your character, no one can do anything with you. Allen Iverson being able to announce that he's coming to Philadelphia, the name alone should produce revenue. But if you were to book him to do something and you paid him first, there's a good chance he's not coming.
Mm. Yeah. Character is everything, right?
Character is, man, it's the one thing that will keep you, right? It's the one thing that if you were a biblical guy, the only reason why Job made it back is because guys came and gave him money based on who he really was through adversity. He didn't go out and invest money, get return. The return was on relationships. When you said the guy who was retired at 35, he met someone wealthy. Dana White, he met 2 wealthy kids.
Yep.
Right? It's proximity and relationships that'll do more for you than anything else.
Yeah. So let me walk you down, the one area that I'm intimately familiar with, which is housing. Where do we interject the education? Because I'm always trying to balance 2 thoughts. One thought is there is no institutional racism in mortgage financing because I don't even see my clients anymore. I see a credit score and I only see green. If a loan's going to pay me $5,000, I don't care if that loan comes from a white, a black, a purple, an Asian, a gay, a non-binary. $5,000 is $5,000, right? So I'm trying to hold that thought in this hand while also holding the thought, born and raised in California, I get it, man. There was a time less than 100 years ago where if you had your skin color, you couldn't buy in San Francisco. You had to go out to the outer limits of Oakland. And so then you fast forward 3 generations, the house in San Francisco is worth $2.5 million. Your house is worth $600,000. I can do a cash out refinance to start a business, finance my kids' college. Like, you know, you and I doing the same right thing, trying to buy a house in those neighborhoods. You know, there's a lot of African Americans that got generationally fucked because of, you know, the redlining from 60, 70 years ago. So it's like modern day, I'll fight to the death that people aren't discriminating against anybody for loans because we want money as an industry. Simultaneously, if we understand that historically there's a lack of financial awareness, financial education, and minorities did get redlined out of the most profitable housing markets in America, how do we square that? And where do we interject the education, you know, before these poor kids get taken advantage of by predatory credit card companies? Where do we interject the education to make sure the next generation, 2 generations, 3 generations become homeowners? Because the average homeowner has a net worth $250,000 greater than somebody who rents. And minority communities tend to rent more than they own. So where do I, as this is the one area where I actually have subject matter expertise, where do we get the education in to fix the problem instead of just throwing our hands up and being like, the problem's too big, I don't know what to do, I'll just treat every borrower fairly, and that's all I can do in my little piece of the world? Like, where can we help?
Well, man, that's a great question. I love the way you set it up even. I'm thinking of like this. If you had showed me or told me that, you see, by the time when it was time for me to go to college, I found out that an older cousin had been using my Social Security number already, defaulted on some things already. I mean, I'm 18 and I've defaulted on a waterbed at a rental center when I was 9. You know, didn't know that. So it started off for me, I'm starting behind. So let me just use it. Since I had seen people rent all the time and worry about landlords and all that stuff, there's one thing. But I had a grandmother, couldn't read or write, who decided to buy homes. And she was like, baby, mortgage here is $425. I'm renting this out for $850, right? And so when you start to see small things like that, if someone were to show you that the person paying the $850 live in the same community, maybe can work the same job, but now their discretionary income goes down because they didn't take care of, they could have fixed it, they could have taken the time. And even if you take a step back and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to get me a 1-bedroom first until I can save up some money. I'm going to live below my standards. Forget about the peer pressure and people looking at me like I've failed. I'm going to sacrifice today so I can save up enough money to fix my credit, right? And then I can use that credit to go get me a home, and I'd be saving money. I'm not going to go get a car from a buy here, pay here.
Yeah.
Paying 25% interest and $800 a week in order to have this BMW. But they will do it because psychic income is more important than real income. This I can see today. This they can see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to fix it, man, I think the only way we would do it is like YouTube is now a father. Your podcast is now a dad. When you explain how to do it, that's how they'll learn. When they hear you say it and you give a pathway and you invite them into it, but you have to charge, because you can have great content if you don't charge for it. I don't care what it is. Someone with piss poor information charging, that's where they'll go. They see late night videos. They're like, Grant Cardone, man, you can make $1 million. I do this multi-level marketing thing, and they jump into that. Do you know how many blacks have jumped into that? How many want to be travel agent because people are like, I made $700,000 in my first 7 months. Yeah, okay.
Right.
But you're given a real plan. You just have to be vocal about it. I think making shorts where you talk about it. You take clips out of this and you start talking about, as controversial as it may sound, but if you were to say, quickest way to help someone out of poverty and get over saying that black is holding me back is to do this. Those clips go viral. They'll bring an audience to you. It'll grow your YouTube, it'll grow your podcast, it'll grow your income, but they need to see it. And the only way they're going to see it in this day and age is if you got viral content. You're a passionate guy. This comes across. You're relatable. You know, you got a cool factor to you. You got some swag still.
It's a cigar. That's why I smoke the cigar.
So, I mean, that works, but that's a whole different audience as well. All of those things work, but the way that we get the message out is through a guy like you. When you talk about it, and they need to know that you're successful. When you said I got 120, if that's credibility, that's expert power. There's a reason why Gary Vee gets people to watch stuff, and he's jumping out of cars going to a garage sale talking about, hey, can I get these 2 comic books off you? I'll trade you this Mattel car I got down the street for 2. And then people are watching this stuff, right? I mean, Gary Vee's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, you know, that's kind of one of the reasons I'm here in New York. But with this conversation we're having, that's not the real him. That's the aspect of how he's gotten the audience.
Right.
And people are like, wow. So that's how he made $1 million? Nah, he didn't make $1 million like that. He's just demonstrating to you that if you don't have anything else, if you lose your money, if you lose your job, lose everything. If you have the skill set, you have the knowledge, you can build that thing back.
Yeah.
That they can take away. And that's really, so the long answer I gave you was this. You speaking, you got the credibility. You being that YouTube father. That's how you do it.
I love it. So let's switch gears to your YouTube channel, because I looked at it and you were so humble when we first talked and so like just endearing and inviting. And most people I know that have 1 million plus followers, they're kind of a dick. So tell me about your channel and how you've grown it. You know, anything from, you know, any of the super secret technical sauce to, you know, hey, this is just what we put out, you know, kind of Field of Dreams. I built it and they came. Like, what's your secret sauce for getting the engagement, getting the views, building the followers? Because I love your stuff and I still don't know how you did it.
All right. So this is it. I took content and I said things and turned it into clips that I knew people had never said before. Let me give you an example. The thing that really pushed us over the top was a 19-second clip of me. I was on the phone with someone and had a little argument, right? And the person said, you know, what you do in the dark is going to come to light. God's going to do this and that. So here's the argument, right? And I got to thinking about that when they hung up, and I said, wow, that's a good content. That's good, something to talk about. So I'm getting out of the car and I'm walking, and there's no lights in the street headed to the gym I'm going to. And there's just a light at the gym, at the door. So I'm walking in the dark and I just start recording on video, and it went like this. What you do in the dark will come to the light. People say that as if God is trying to expose all your flaws for everyone to know, but that's not it. You see, the other side of the coin is this. Midnight is a new day and it's still dark. What God's talking about is the work you do in the dark when no one else is watching. That's how your name ends up in lights. It's the hard work. It's the dedication. What you do in the dark will come to the light. When you've been trolling and working and toiling and doing stuff and no one's paying attention, it's that stuff that will let them see your name in lights. Something very simple like that. Next thing I know, I wake up, man, and there's tons of people looking at that, right? I think maybe we had 14 million or whatever like that on the short like that. Next thing I know, people are going and we put it into a mashup, and the thing just goes crazy. And then we keep taking clips and keep taking movie clips of things that were emotional or meaningful or intellectual, something that challenges you. Like when Rocky is talking to his son, he's like, There's a lot of quitters, but that ain't you, right?
It's a great scene. Great scene.
Great scene, but that's a man moment. You understand? And taking that, and you show that, or when Apollo is telling him there is no tomorrow, right? He's all over him. You have to do it now because Rock wanted to quit and was like, "I'll try come back tomorrow." He's like, "There is no tomorrow." That moment, you see, that resonates. Finding the spark plug to a man's will. That's what I'm going for. And so when we're there and we're talking about those type of things, there's the sauce is being authentic and talking about the things that made me a man. And then so we find content from others that can support that. But then we notice that anytime if I'm the lead voice, if we start off with me, we get 3 times as many views. If I start off with anyone else, whether it be Jocko, Goggins, Jordan Peterson, it doesn't matter. We get less. And so initially the idea was that Les Brown, I looked up to these guys and until I made my idols my rivals and I chased them down. When I surpassed Eric Thomas in total members, that was a big one, you know? And I went to chase him down, even with all his marketing and advertising. He's like, "I'm the greatest. I'm the first to bring hip hop and this, that, and to the motivation." And I'm like, that's not hip hop. Black. The culture doesn't even call it hip hop anymore. You're outdated. For a 58-year-old man to be talking about some hip hop is outdated. Sometimes you can keep working and not realize God fired you a long time ago.
Oh, that's such a good clip. You can keep working and not realize God fired you a long time ago. I'm gonna use that one in the context of the business I work in quite a bit. So thank you. You got to copyright that one. I love what you just said though, because in describing your content, this is how I would describe it now using your words. It's the spark to plug into a man's will. Not being manly, alpha male, crush the competition. Your stuff is really about sparking that thought, that chain of consciousness of a man's will, and circling, all the way back to your conversation on accountability. I love that. You're in your 40s, right?
Man, I'll be 50 next month.
Congratulations. Looking good. So obviously, YouTube's only been around for 10 years. This has been your thing. Pre-YouTube, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, who did you look up to, right? As a kid, I'm 44, so we're kind of that same generation. You and I were both looking up to the Hulkster, and you probably grew up watching all the 80s, Chuck Norris, all that stuff, right? Like, I feel like a kinship there on the shit we watched as we were a kid. But when you were coming up as a young man, 20s and even into your 30s, who did you look up to? What were you listening to? What was the YouTube of the day when you were a 20, 30-year-old? Like what planted a lot of these seeds that ends up coming out in your YouTube videos?
Well, man, there was a pastor that was world renowned in Atlanta, and he was a mentor to me. I looked up to him because he was just seen, sometimes it's a true statement. Sometimes it's better not to meet your idol.
Yeah.
Right. But so I ended up getting closer. And I mean, this was like achieving stuff, man. Being around him and being connected. And then to the point where, this guy is like endorsing you, supporting you, and you feeling this camaraderie and stuff. And then you get to really know them. And I'm like, oh my God, oh damn, this is messed up. But I had a lot of people looked up to, and then it helped me calm down from I'm a fan of no man now. I love the gifts and talents and guys, but I'm past the fandom. And so if I meet a guy, it's, I'm going to treat you the very same as everyone else, not because I'm not a respecter of persons. I have respect for your person, what you've done. But I separate public imagery from actual people a lot because I've known that those are two different people. Like when I'm speaking, you're meeting the authentic me. When I'm on stage, the only difference is, man, I turn up sometimes, and I'll clean up a little bit better. But I don't have any canned speeches. every time that I get up. Now I've got a list of things I know that are home runs, right? I can always go and tell my story or whatever like that, but I don't usually do that because that's already a given.
Right.
But to talk about other things that I'm experiencing, I'm growing through, holding people accountable, things that are just mind blowing to me, I figure will be mind blowing to them, and it just is transferred. I'm just becoming the conduit for it.
Yeah.
That really is it.
So, obviously, YouTube revenue is great, stuff, but I just feel like you have so much value to give. What's next? Are you going to start a paid mastermind or a course on how to build an authentic channel like the one you've built, or are you on the speaking tour engagement? Like, what's next for you for getting to that billion people? And obviously, you get to a billion people, the money's kind of going to follow. So what's next for you?
I want to be a loan officer. They get cool hats, they smoke cigars. My man got a sippy cup that is just everything about him is cool. That's what I want to do.
You do not want to be a loan officer. It is a dying career, and AI is going to wipe us out.
Yeah. So this is my game plan now. I'm doing a tour right now where I'm going to mega churches. I'm taking great men that I meet along the way, and I'm putting them in front of a great number of men. I'm going to have subscribers through the website of Absolute Motivation TV, where people can get the stuff commercial free, so they can get the thoughts, make it real cheap, $8 a month. So people go on, subscribe, get all of that content. But then I'm also going to do mastermind things and coaching and invite people to come to things where you can not only get inspiration, right, but be actually learn instructions on how you can develop. So I would rather have people come and bring their business plan and their concepts and take someone who's an expert and have them run roughshod over it with you. Not to break you down to hurt you, but to break you down so that you can now put back the pieces together the right way, to get rid of all the mysticism and the hopophile. You see, most of the people think that manifesting your dreams is about you have a huge dream, and then this huge dream that you have will somehow just happen. It doesn't happen that way. You see, you put in the work, and then you follow a plan. You have someone to hold you accountable that tells you, hey, there's some pitfalls ahead. Turn left here, turn right, because they see them. Like, imagine you getting invited to speak, and they tell you, you're going to get $5,000 to speak, and you use that number like that's a huge number, and most people would think it that way, right? And then you hear someone else say, I'll show you how to get $50,000 in speech. If you're not getting that, you're like, wow, he must be better than me. No, you see, what he's doing is this. He's charging other people to be on stage with him, and each one of them are paying him. And then he's getting a percentage of the door. He's getting a percentage of what they sell from stage. And so when he says 50, there's a number of factors that all went into this whole thing. And so the mirage that he's just $50,000 better than you is a lie.
Right.
So when it comes to me, yes, I'm going to develop people, but I'm going to develop them in an authentic way. I grew organically. We've never run an ad.
You never run an ad?
Never run an ad.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Has grown by word of mouth in the same way Costco has. That was the model.
Brilliant. And in that, in the absolutemotivation.tv, which will be up and running by the time this podcast comes out, so I'm glad to help get the word out there. Obviously, you have a ton of content, you have a ton of stuff. Do you see building that out into courses, where you need like a chubby white guy to teach people how to get a mortgage, and you need stuff like that? Do you?
Well, you're not chubby, dude. Listen, what are you, 230?
No, man. I'm down to 200. I was up to 235. I lost 30 pounds since Christmas.
Yeah, you're just a baby, man.
Bro, I got a second chin here still. I got this body fat. All the guys at the jiu-jitsu gym tell me I got to lose 20 more pounds.
80 pounds underneath me in weight, man. You're doing fine, man. You're looking good. You're in your prime. Let me just say this, man. If you'd be willing to share your passion, your art with people, I would love to share a stage with you and have you impact and teach people to change their lives.
Yeah,
you see,
great.
Everything that I do has been relational. All I want to do is take people who are authentic. I want you to succeed. I want you to get business from it, but I want you to give them something authentic. I don't want you to do, I almost said some names. I met some guys and all they do is fleece the group, right? They fleece the crowd.
It's the
They
worst.
walk out of and they ruin people. I want to make a difference, man. And so, yeah, there's great money in this. But the money follows because of your purpose. People will follow where you're authentic.
100%.
Yeah, they can be confused for a moment initially, and we all look the same. But you get close enough, you hear us talk, and you can tell that there are some people who are just repeating the same. Stay hungry, doing it, whatever it is. Keep saying the same stuff, but the passion is gone.
It's all hustle porn. It's all hustle porn. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. And, I have, I won't use the gentleman's name either, but there's a loan officer who's arguably better loan officer than me. He's closed more loans. He's done more of the stuff. He probably has better Wazoo systems and whatnot. We launched a coaching program at the same time. And I did it by going YouTube live and growing one coaching client at a time organically. He spent $250,000 with logos and this and all the fancy shit. They were done in 6 months because he's just not authentic. Like people, he's a great producer. He's a great individual. He is not a leader. He's not authentic. I don't know if he's intentionally there to fleece people, but he's the guy that, this month I'm doing crypto and next month I'm selling solar and you're going to do this add-on product in addition to the loans. And it's like, your core business is so good, just be authentic and people will follow you, but he ain't. And so they don't. And so I feel good about the fact that I outlasted that guy in the coaching because it's just, people see through that bullshit after they've spent the first few grand on a course.
Yeah, I gotta tell you. So I relate this. I would go to the gym, and there was this guy who was jacked. I mean, just all veiny, muscular out, and all that stuff. And he was older. He's like maybe 55, but he was built like he was 20, right? And I would see him, and I'm like, man. So what's your secret? I was too young to know about that he was on testosterone, right?
Right.
But I'm just like hard work, dedication, brother. Plus the secret thing are these vitamins that I sell. And I was like, man, well, and I said, hey, the vitamins you sell, what are they? Man, listen, they're black market stuff. If I told you about them, brother, if you took them, you'd be so jacked, your whole friend. Man, I really don't even want this out. And I was like, well, how much are they? And he's like, $75, brother. I give you a handful of them. You try them and you come back to me. Listen, I took 2 of them. And at the end of my workout, I was so jacked, brother. I was like, whoa. So I give him $75, right? So the next time I see him, man, and he goes, hey, brother, I got some new stuff that it's 5 times better than the stuff I sold you. It's $200. And I was like, what? Well, here's $200. And then I realized, you know what? I got like 4 bottles of pills I can't eat that every time I meet this guy, he's always got something better than it was before.
Right.
And it was never doing anything for me.
Right.
And so,
and meanwhile, he's jacked on vitamin S from down in Mexico, right? Just put horse stimulants in his ass.
And then all of a sudden, the gym was like, hey, we've kicked such and such out. We caught him selling steroids. And I said, steroids? No, he got these vitamins. They're like, no, those are, they said, if you look closely, he shaved off 1 a day off of those. And I was like, are you kidding me, man? I've been taking 1 a day.
Oh my God.
For 75. Listen, eventually people will see that the results aren't there and that what you've manifested is their dollars in them, not their results from actually winning. So you and I, we take the slow and steady course. I might have been the turtle or the tortoise in this race, but it didn't take long for me to go ahead and get in first place. I'm not done. This is just the beginning of it. The conversation we'll have now, in the time to come, we will reconnect. And the takeover that we did won't be by accident. I didn't come to take sides. I came to help people take over. I'm going to bring a new team in. It's time out for the same con games. It's time out for people. And I mean it. I'm committed to this, to help people, to encourage them, but to teach them and to avoid the things of being fleeced. I believe that a good coach can be like in your life, $100 a month, right? And
Yep.
that you're growing, learning, and a part of his mastermind group, growing it as a part of that. And that's $1,200 a year. You say, well, that isn't much. But thousands of people paying you that. Look what it does for you. But look what it can do for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Without breaking them, you can take them somewhere. You can win and they can win without fleecing the place. There are other people who might want to get more time with you, more personal coaching. Yes, that goes, and you're worth whatever it is you charge. And whatever you charged last year, you probably should be charging more, you know? But the one thing I can say is this, because your costs change, you're growing, you're evolving, you're getting better at it. But it also gives you an incentive that every time you charge more, it makes you have to add more value because you don't want to take advantage with your kind of heart. And so you got to keep growing and stretching. And so together, let's keep doing this, man.
I love it, man. I got two questions I always love to end with, and this podcast will come out late July 2023. So going into the second half of the year, what's the thing you're most looking forward to, or that the project you're working on that you're most fired up about? That's number one. And then number two, I'm a movie junkie, so I feel like I can learn a lot about somebody this way. What's your favorite movie and why? So what are you excited about the second half of the year, and what's your favorite movie and why?
You're going to love this one. So by the end of the year, well, that's too far out. I'm going to say by July and August, I will have gone from Atlanta to fill up the former Lakers Stadium, the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there in August, and we're going to touch so many lives there, man.
Amazing.
And it'd be, brother, if we can connect and have you help people follow your path, man. I think you have something to contribute because you're not asking for it. It's easy to ask people up that aren't trying to fleece people, you know? So let me give you the answer on the movie now. My favorite movie might be Man on Fire with Denzel.
Epic movie.
Yeah. And you said my why, that movie. There's a line in there where Creasy is that's the character he plays, is with the little girl. And when the little girl gets in the water, every time she gets into the water, she's great. She's phenomenal. She's the fastest kid in the area in the water. The problem is at the start of the race, she always messes up when the gun goes off. And so what he does is he keeps trying to help her overcome the bad start. The moment that she overcame the bad start by having confidence in him, that when the loud noise went off, that it wasn't to scare her, but it was to start her, right? The bad start you can overcome with skill, but you can lose out opportunities because you allow that to be your excuse. She fixes the bad start and becomes a champion in it. You see, all of us make the mistake of focusing on the bad start. I can forever be the 11-year-old who lost his leg with a bad start with a father that wasn't involved and a mother that slaps. Or I can be the man that grew into something and said the bad start was actually the thing that taught me that I needed to work on something. And what I worked on allowed me to fix it. And when I fixed it, I became a champion.
That's the way to end the podcast, man. James, let me know anything I can do for you. Like, my time is your time if you need it for anything. And yeah, I want to have you back on at some point when it's convenient. Maybe if you're ever out here in Vegas doing a big event, we'll sit down, have a cigar together, do one in person. But let's for sure stay in person, man. Stay in touch so we can meet in person.
Count on it. I've never been to Vegas, but my wife and I, we want to come. But
all right,
and so
you two come here. We'll show you a good time. My wife and I will take you out to all the trendy spots on the strip, but we'll take you to some off the strip spots that you'll enjoy even more. And yeah, we still have a place down in LA, so anytime you need help at an event there, I'm just there to add value however I can, man.
Dude, I mean that. So you and I would talk offline about the thing I have come up in LA, because I was just talking with some people. I was letting a guy go from my team because he was upset that we didn't allow him to speak for as long. But I took him off stage because he was crashing and burning. You see, just because you have the money to afford to be on stage, to be there or whatever, doesn't mean you should be.
Right.
And when you're not in your element, you're not doing well, you'd be doing yourself a disservice to keep going. If you're fumbling around trying to remember where was I, you're complaining about your presentation, when what I was really doing, my team is like Value Team, and I watched how they were built and born. And I was like, I'm going to go ahead and replace all those household names that were on there, because now Absolute already has our audience.
Yep.
And I'm going to be introducing new voices alongside mine and build my own team and make that team household names with me. And so as we go across the country and people constantly hearing us, I'm building that team. And each of us have a different skill set. We don't need to all be motivational speakers. We just all have to be people of character, people who can speak. You've got to, if you didn't feel comfortable speaking, you wouldn't have done the podcast.
Right.
You know you've got to go. You know how to speak. The problem is you just don't have a big enough audience. I just started teaching guys. There were two guys smart enough to contact me and say, teach me how to grow my YouTube. And I was like, you got it. And so they hired me and said, put my team on it. We taught them what to do. Now they monetized, they grew their subscribers, all it took. And they were like, well, the way we were doing is we were going to hire these people. It doesn't take that. Find the people who are winning and find out what culture they created to create it. Find out what tactics they do. Why struggle and try to reinvent a wheel? And people keep going to the same people trying to learn. Just because someone's loud saying, we did this, that, and the other, and it's not true. They're paying out the wazoo to do it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, brother. It doesn't have to do that. Again, thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Let's stay in touch, man. And yeah, I love it. I love it. We're going to do something together. I don't know what it is, but it's going to be something.
I'm going to let my wife say hi to you right quick. Come here, Dave. Let's see. Lean on down here. Just whoa. Say hi.
I made your husband cry on it first time on a podcast. So we had a good cry together over grandma's.
Glad you edited that out. I'm gonna be like, AI did that. Brother, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon.
Count on it, brother.
Later.